Welcome to the First Player Token Podcast, a short podcast for folks who enjoy playing board games with family and friends. I'm your host, Derek Bruff. In this episode, I have another family board game recommendation, Sheriff of Nottingham. Years ago, I shared with my oldest kids one of my favorite movie quotes. It's from the 1991 movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, starring Kevin Costner. I'll spare you my terrible British accent and just play the tape.
I'm gonna cut your heart out with a spoon!
Then it begins.
Why a spoon, cousin? Why not an axe?
Because it's dull, you twit. It'll hurt more.
That was the late, great Alan Rickman as the Sheriff of Nottingham there. You may know him as Professor Snape from the Harry Potter movies. That man could play a bad guy. If you've ever wanted to play a bad guy, then Sheriff of Nottingham, a 2014 game from Arcane Wonders, is the game for you. In the game, designed by Sergio Halaban, Andre Zatz, and Brian Pope, players are transported back to the world of Robin Hood. In the name of Prince John, the sheriff has set up checkpoints outside the city, examining any incoming merchant carts for what the sheriff calls contraband. Merchants are bringing their goods into the city and maybe smuggling a little something among their wares. Each round, one player gets to be the sheriff while the other players are merchants. The role of sheriff rotates around the table, and the game ends after each player has been the sheriff twice. During a round, each merchant has a handful of cards. Some of them are legal goods, like apples and bread. Some of them are contraband, like pepper and mead. Each merchant selects some cards from their hand, places them in a little bag, and snaps the bag closed. Then they present their bag to the sheriff, announcing what they have to bring into the city. Here's the thing. You can't lie about how many cards are in your bag, but you can lie about which cards they are. You might say 4 chickens, but secretly have 2 chickens and 2 crossbows in your bag. The sheriff then has to decide if you're bluffing. If the sheriff opens your bag and finds contraband there, the contraband is discarded and you pay a fine to the sheriff. If, however, the sheriff opens your bag and you were telling the truth, he pays a fine to you. And if the sheriff doesn't open your bag, you get to keep any contraband you might have smuggled in. Regardless of the sheriff's choice, you'll get to keep whatever goods you were honest about. So if you said you had chickens, you'll keep whatever chickens were in the bag. During the sheriff's inspection, negotiation between the merchant and the sheriff is encouraged. The merchant can offer the sheriff all kinds of things not to open their bag. Coins, goods they've already collected, goods in the bag, legal or otherwise, and even promises of future favors. Maybe you offer the sheriff 2 coins to let your bag pass inspection, but thinking you're hiding something, the sheriff asks for 4 coins. Maybe you take that deal, knowing you'll score more from the contraband in your bag. Or maybe you pass, and the sheriff opens your bag, only to find out you were telling the truth, and now he has to pay you. Maybe you tricked him into thinking you were lying with your 2-coin offer. Well done. Coins are the currency of the game. Each player starts with 50 coins, but they move around the table as players take turns being the sheriff. At the end of the game, each coin is worth a point. Each legal good you've collected is worth between 2 and 4 points. And each contraband you've snuck past the sheriff is worth between 6 and 9 points. Each type of legal good also has a king's bonus and a queen's bonus, some extra points for whichever player has collected the most or second most of that type of good. I like that Sheriff of Nottingham has multiple paths to victory. You can be a great bluffer and load up on contraband that you've gotten past the sheriff. Or you can be really good at detecting lies, catch a lot of players on their contraband when you're the sheriff, and load up on coins. Or you can manage your hand well so that you collect a lot of legal goods and pick up a few kings and queens bonuses. You have a shot of winning as an honest player, but one thing I've learned from Sheriff of Nottingham is that I am a terrible liar. My wife says she really likes that about me, so I guess that's okay, but it can be hard to win this game without successfully bluffing, at least once or twice. Of course, this means that Sheriff of Nottingham kinda teaches your kids how to lie. The core mechanic of the game is bluffing, and players can be rewarded for bluffing well. That's true for a lot of card games where you keep the contents of your hand secret, but Sheriff puts bluffing front and center. If you're not okay with that, then this game isn't for you. I have to admit, once my kids hit their teenage years and started, let's say, bluffing in other areas of their life, this game got a little uncomfortable to play. But with younger kids or even teenagers who you have a lot of trust with, this is a really fun game. Speaking of younger players, let's go to our medieval business correspondent for some thoughts on Sheriff of Nottingham. You said this was your favorite game. Why is Sheriff of Nottingham your favorite game?
Well, there's lots of things you can do, and there's a lot of strategizing in it, and it's fun to strategize.
Is the real answer because you like to lie?
Maybe.
What is your strategy? Do you tend to do you put stuff in the bag and tell the truth, or do you try to sneak in some contraband?
I like to mix it up. I mostly tell the truth, but sometimes it's fun to sneak stuff in.
And do you usually get caught, or do you usually get away with it?
I'm pretty good at catching people. I'm bad at getting caught. Everybody catches me.
So you're a good lie detector,
Yeah.
but you're not a good liar.
No.
What do you think about this sheriff guy?
Well, he's honestly scary. I mean, all the spikes on his boots and shoulders and wrists.
Yeah, I think he's a little creepy. What about this contraband? What's your favorite contraband?
I like the golden apples. I usually get a lot of those.
Yeah. Because they're not really bad.
Not really.
They're just better than normal apples.
Yeah.
I'm fond of the crossbow. I think it's worth the most points.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah. It's the only 9-point contraband.
Mm-hmm.
Plus it's a crossbow.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit more like Robin Hood when I have that. Yeah. So, because I think that guy looks like Robin Hood.
He's creepy. Look at his smile.
He does look like he's not a good guy.
I mean, yeah.
So what about the bags?
I like
I think
them.
this is the only board game I have with snapping bags.
Yeah.
Yes.
The yellow one, you can actually see through it.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Like sometimes.
Oh my goodness.
That's why I have to, whenever I use it, I have to put the card a certain way.
Oh, you knew. Oh, this is why you're a good lie detector. You knew that the yellow bag is see-through.
Yeah.
You're a tricky sheriff.
Yeah, I like figuring out if they're telling the truth. Because, in real life, you can, use, what your strategy in the game to figure out if they're lying in real life.
So can you tell when your friends are lying?
No, because I've never played this game with them.
I think that's it. Is there anything else you'd like to say about Sheriff of Nottingham?
I would recommend it.
That was my 11-year-old niece who asked to be interviewed about Sheriff of Nottingham because it's her favorite game in my collection. I was happy to oblige. You'll need at least 3 players to play Sheriff of Nottingham, but it works best with 4 or 5. The box says the game is for ages 14 and up, but there's no reading or math required, so you can probably play with kids as young as 8 or 9. The game takes between 45 and 60 minutes, depending on how lively you are during the sheriff inspections. I like to get into the role-playing. I'm just an honest merchant, Mr. Sheriff. I wouldn't try to sneak in pepper or silk like those other shady characters. But I know your job is so thankless. Here's a couple of coins for all your hard work on behalf of this fair city. Or when I'm the sheriff, this bag smells a lot like chicken, but there's something else here, something peppery. You're not trying to sneak any contraband in the city, are you? Prince John wouldn't look kindly on that. Often this will get the kids into some role-playing, or at least some bad English accents. The drama of the sheriff inspections is really the heart of the game. The bags you put your cards in open and close with a satisfying snap, which often punctuates a particularly lively negotiation between merchant and sheriff. You can be kind of strategic with your bribes, and if you're counting points, you might lead with chickens over cheese because you'll get a king's bonus, But I find that my kids and nibblings don't worry much about strategy or points. They stick to the bluffing and the lie detecting. The art in the 2014 edition of the game by Lorraine Schletter and David Sladek is fantastic. The goods and contraband are bright and bold, and the characters, see, each player has a merchant character, one of whom looks a lot like Robin Hood. The characters are Disney-esque. There's a 5-inch tall cardboard stand-up of the sheriff that rotates around the table. He is suitably imposing and looks a bit like Governor Ratcliffe, the bad guy from the Pocahontas movie. A second edition of the game came out in 2020 from Simon Games. I haven't tried it, but it has updated rules, a 6th player option, and a couple of expansions in the box. It's probably great, but I'm partial to the art in the original game. It may be a little harder to find the Arcane Wonders version, but it's worth the hunt. My copy of Sheriff of Nottingham was gifted to me by my daughters, and it came with a plastic spoon with a note that said, "With a spoon," because they know me and my favorite movie quotes quite well. That's it for this episode of the First Player Token Podcast. See the show notes for more info and photos of Sheriff of Nottingham, as well as a link to the podcast's new Facebook group. And if you have a minute, please share this or any other episode on your social media platform of choice. That goes a long way to helping new listeners find us. I've been your host, Derek Bruff. Thanks for listening. Now it's time to play some games. Do 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 do.